Good morning. Thank you for joining the OMS webinar today. We will now start the session, but before we do, please bear with me for some housekeeping notes. Please note that this session today is being recorded and will be made available through EMA corporate website and YouTube channel. Participation throughout the session is made via the Slido tool. Interaction with Slido is voluntary and you may opt to remain anonymous. If you do provide us your personal details, you are consenting to the processing of your personal data as explained in EMA data privacy statement for Slido. Next. So please interact with us using slido.com in the code that you see there on screen or the QR code that you also see on screen. And also note that at the bottom of every slide, you have the details of the Slido code to be used for this particular session. Please, before posting any additional questions, have a look and see whether the question has been raised already and vote for it. This will increase the likelihood that we will cover it at the end. Throughout the session, we will have colleagues in the back end who will attempt to address the questions in writing as the session goes on. And at the end, the presenter will verbally address the unanswered questions that have received the most votes. So this is why it is important that you vote for the question that you want to see addressed. Please do bear with us that although we do our best efforts to answer each and every question, we have a high volume of users participating, and we sometimes have a high volume of questions. And also we may require assistance of a particular colleague that may not be available today. So do bear with us if something does go unanswered. We will look at the unanswered questions and we will fish out the most relevant ones to be put in our frequently asked question document available in the SPOR portal, but we will not be answering each and every question or publishing detailed answers to the questions of the webinars. If you do have a specific question that you really want to be addressed, or if it's specific to a given case that you have open with us, we kindly ask that you raise it via service desk, as this is the way that we can track, investigate, and actually assign it to the relevant colleague to make sure it's addressed. So this is how we will be processing the questions today. With regards to the materials of the webinar, the presentations are already available on EMA events page and they will be published in the SPOR portal, and the recordings of the session will be available via the EMA YouTube channel and EMA events page. If you want us to send you the recordings and the presentations via email, please register your email address in the Slido details that you see on this particular PowerPoint slide, and we'll email them to you after the session. So having said this, I now hand over the presentation on the Organization Management Services to our business lead, Deborah Braga. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Isabel. So good morning. Thank you for joining to our OMS presentation today as part of our SPOR webinars. So without further ado, for today, the goals of this session is to increase awareness on OMS activities. We will be sharing with you all planned activities that we have in the pipeline, as well as showing you how OMS is addressing the feedback that you provided last year when filling in our customer survey. As part of the agenda as part of the agenda that we have today. So we'll start with a brief introduction. We'll go over some of the OMS processes, including change request process, data quality management. We'll show you a little bit of our statistics, a small guidance on documents and where can you find them, showing you where OMS is in terms of project and systems, and introducing to this webinar what's new in OMS, the updated plan activities for the next year, and we'll finish with some key takeaways of today's session. So starting with OMS key principles. So OMS dictionary provides a central source of organization data hosted by EMA. This is accessible to and used throughout EMA and by external users. An organization is captured in OMS as a legal entity, and it will group all its physical locations within a certain jurisdiction. To bear in mind that OMS will not capture any roles such as marketing authorization holders or manufacturers. We will not create different organizations depending on the context, if it's a human or vet. This it's to be maintained at consuming system level. OMS will create according to the how the organization is registered as legal entity. Other details such as departments information is also not maintained in OMS. Organization data is structured with unique identifiers, one for organization ID and another one for location ID. And you will see in OMS that we have some records mapped with certain EMA source systems, such as the case that we have in front of us, where we see some mappings from other GMDP. So we mastered a couple of records where we had the legal name and some extra information as part of the organization name. However, when we mastered the record, when we import and master the record in OMS, what we did is we created the record as a legal entity, and we retain all the system source IDs under the same record. Lock IDs, this part is very important. Lock IDs will be unique and they will not change throughout life cycle of the record. So it's possible that we can have one lock ID. You can see in the system multiple lock IDs actually refer to the same location data. However, not to forget that we need to take into consideration the relationship that a certain location has with the legal entity. That's why you may see what may seem at the first glance a duplicate, but this will not be the case. OMS always publish the latest version of the information available, and we will maintain, this is visible throughout the versions, and in OMS these versions are captured in a timestamp format. And last but not least, OMS does not have individuals unless this individual is registered as a legal entity in a designated country. If individuals are required to certain regulatory procedures, they need to be dealt directly by each consuming system. Now, this is one of the frequent questions that we receive. Who can actually change OMS data? And the answer to this question is fairly simple. Anyone that has a SPOR role can update any of the records that we have as part of the OMS dictionary. How do we prevent any malicious requests from being submitted? This happens through our validation process that we do in the back end, assessing the veracity of this request. To help us with our validation process, one of the requirements that we have is that we require supporting documentation to be submitted so that we can, the validation process is smoother and we can publish the data. Not to forget that OMS is a standardized list of organization and location details. So OMS uses those supporting documentation, reference source information, such as National Business Registry or proof of registration. One of our sources we use is also DUNS. This reference information we use to ensure the data correctness and accuracy. OMS will reflect always the reality. We need to ensure that we have the correct organization and the correct legal entity type. We need to ensure the correct relationship with all its addresses, and we need to ensure that we have the correct physical address. OMS will always reflect an equivalent information of the supporting documentation submitted by the user. However, this does not mean that we will be creating a copy of those documents. What OMS will do is OMS will reflect a consistent information. OMS will apply our data quality standards, our data quality rules to standardize the data that we publish, both at organization and location level. In a more schematic way, exactly how do we do this? So when we receive a request, first step is always validation against the supporting documentation, and second step, we do the standardization for organization name. We use our OMS data quality standards, our Bible, where it states exactly how an organization and a legal entity type should be maintained per country or jurisdiction. When we talk location data standards, OMS has an embedded tool that has information directly from each national postal service, and having this library at the back end, it helps us ensuring that we will have an address in a certain country according to the standards of that same country. For cases where some addresses may not be recognized by those national postal service, such as PO box addresses, we will follow the standards capture also in our OMS data quality standards. Moving on into OMS process and data stewardship. So an overview of the main processes performed by OMS. The two main processes where we are in direct contact with support users are change request and customer service. We also provide what we call data service. This is done by our own initiative, and in this group we have activities such as mapping activities, integration with new systems, new projects, or even maintenance of information between other systems and OMS, which we also call it deltas. In addition, we also do data quality quality control. We do a sample of all the tasks that we perform. To help us with our data quality management, we also do data profiling, where we monitor and we define rules that we have, where we apply the rules that we have in our OMS data quality standards, and we see any deviation to those rules, we will act upon according. And finally, our quality assurance, where we do an assessment of root cause and possible process improvement. And last but not least, we also have service management activities, where we coordinate with relevant bodies that may be required through our process. And finally, we also perform KPI reportings, and we do, last but not least, the assessment of our yearly customer satisfaction survey. Moving on into our OMS change request process. So in a nutshell, this is how changes can be applied to our OMS dictionary. It's through this change request process. So the requester can submit a change request to create or update any data from the system. Important not to forget at this stage to include the supporting documentation. And here I'm reinforcing this message because according to the latest statistics, close to 40% of our rejections are due to the missing supporting documentation. So once we have the change request in our system, the EMA data steward will analyze the request. And at this stage, it's important to note that the organization name and location will be validating using the supporting documentation, will validate against the source systems. When valid, the data will then be standardized following our OMS data quality rules and our tool, so-called Address Doctor, where we have the information from each national postal service. After the assessment, the change request can either be approved or rejected, and the user will always receive an email acknowledgement with the respective outcome. This each change request will have a defined SLA, and for any disagreement, the user can always raise a service desk ticket to have further clarification on why was it rejected, and to have further assessment to that, to what on how we handle the request. So moving on into change request submission and how exactly does this work. First and foremost, it's very important because this is also one of the frequent questions that we have, which is for you to be able to submit a request in OMS, you always need to log in, to be logged in our system. As if you have an EMA account, this is how you're going to log in to OMS portal. So so after login, to be able to be prompt with the change request functionality, you first need to perform a query in OMS. So you need to populate the minimum requirements. And at this point, you don't need to copy exactly the same information that you have in your supporting documentation. Just use, just try to refine your search, use some keywords for the organization name alongside with the country, and the system will prompt you with the outcome of that search. Once this is visible in your computer, you'll be prompted with the change request options. And from here, you can either create a new organization, or you can update, you can create a location, or you can update organization or location details. When we look at creation of an organization, so the creation and update form are fairly similar with a few tweaks. When we talk create an organization, there will be mandatory information that is required for the user to populate. At this point, I'll leave you here the guidance in case you'd like to consult. But at this point, is just key notes to take from here is that not to forget that any information that you populate in this form, aside from the requester information, this information will never be made publicly. it will never be publicly available. Just to bear in mind that any details populated under organization details and location details will be, if the validation process goes through acceptance, everything will be made publicly available. And this is why this last box, this is what you acknowledge when you tick this last box. So, not to forget that to create, when can you actually submit, when should you submit, create new organization change request. This change request should only be submitted when a new company it needs to be created in OMS and is officially registered as a new legal entity in the National Business Registry. In a case of update, organization name, as you can see, there are some fields that are pre-populated. There will be certain attributes that will be grayed out and they will not be editable, such as org ID and loc ID. This is not, it cannot be changed. So at this point, for an update of organization name, all will be required is you'll be filling in the form by updating the organization name attribute, never to forget to attach the supporting documentation. And when can you actually submit this type of update organization name? These type of change requests are only to be submitted when the company changes the legal name in the National Business Registry. And last but not least, when we have a deactivate location change request, so in this case, when should you create a change request to deactivate a location? This should only take place when the company is no longer doing business in a certain location. In no other cases, if you don't need the location, if there is a transfer, no other cases, the deactivate location change request should be submitted. Only when this location is no longer, a certain organization is no longer operating in a certain physical location. Now, just give you some guidance in terms of supporting documentation. So we have a whole document where we define the rules on what type of supporting documentation should you submit alongside with your change request. We have rules depending on the jurisdiction, if we're talking an EEA organization, and depending also on the type of organization. All these rules are, we have put together some tables where you can find exactly what type of supporting documentation to have your that you should submit alongside with your change request to have your organization successfully created in our OMS dictionary. Now we've talked about validation and standardization. I'll just like to leave you here one example of organization and another one for location. So when we receive a change request to create a certain organization, first step we do is validation of the data. So we validate the supporting documentation against the National Business Registry. We ensure that the organization name is exactly the same. So once it's valid, we move on into the standardization of the data. And for this, we need to go to our OMS data quality standards. And in this case, for a British company, we have in our rules that the legal entity type, such as LTD, should be written as limited. So this is exactly what we do when we talk standardization. We're not changing the meaning, we're just standardizing the way we publish our information. In terms of location process, it works exactly the same way. First, we need to validate the information against supporting documentation and source systems to attest the veracity of this request. Once the request is valid, we move into standardization. And here, in this case, this often happens where we have an organization doing business in a different in a location that belongs to a different organization. But for us and for the National Postal Service, this detail is not relevant. So when we standardize a location, these type of details, they will not be captured in OMS. The only thing we need to ensure is that we have exactly the same physical address that the user tried to create when he submitted the change request. So back to the change request process itself. When the change request is rejected, the user, as I mentioned, will receive an email acknowledgement containing not only the rejection reason code, as well as a comment providing a brief justification and, when applicable, further guidance on how can the user proceed to have the request successfully approved in the next attempt. At this point, to highlight that if the user realizes afterward, because it can happen, that they forgot to submit the supporting documentation, there is no return functionality OMS, and for this reason, the user will have to wait for us to process the request so that you can then do a second attempt with the supporting documentation and have the change request approved. And when we have a case of approval, this is what we always want to have, again, the requester will receive an approval message with, when applicable, with the respective OMS identifiers. When it's a case of creating a new organization, the user will receive a message, an email message saying your request has been approved, and this is your new organization ID. As part of our validation process, after we proceed to approval, we still need to ensure that what we publish is according to our OMS data quality rules, and that we have not missed any elements to the change request. Moving on into the OMS data quality management, how do we maintain a high quality of information, and what process do we have in place to ensure such high quality? So we have two types of data quality management approaches. We have a reactive and a proactive approach. What you don't know or see, but we have this reactive approach that you can come to us through our service desk. You can communicate any issues, any deviation to our OMS data quality standards, and we take note of this in case we need to correct anything in OMS, either in terms of updating OMS data quality rules or in terms of simply correct the data. Another more proactive approach is where we do a sampling of all our tasks, all type of tasks that you saw in one of the previous slides. We do a 20% sampling of all the tasks that we perform. Apart from this sampling, we also monitor our data using what we call data profiling, and to this we will see in a couple of examples in the next slide. Once we have this, we look at the errors we identify with these two approaches, and And this is how we ensure the confidence that that you can have in OMS, and we ensure that is within the acceptable thresholders. Looking into some examples of data profiling, what exactly is this? How does it work? So this, what we do is we build profiles, and they are built having embedded our OMS data quality rules, and we have dashboards, some examples that you have in front of you. So what they tell us is if we have any record that deviate to that rule, they will be prompted in those dashboards with different colors that are not green. So these dashboards, they are daily monitored, and it's an ongoing process, because if we receive any data quality defect, if we need to discuss any rule that may lead to the update of the OMS data quality standards, then consequentially, we need to update our OMS scorecard to maintain, to ensure that those rules are being followed in our OMS dictionary. Then how do we keep an eye on those dashboards? So in terms of prioritization, so the way we work is we acknowledge that we may have those data quality errors, but we need to tackle them using different priorities. Normally what we do is we start with the reds, and we move on into the greens until we reach 100% of the scores, because we also have a couple of exceptions. And what we have here, one of the examples that I brought here is Irish addresses. As you may know, Irish addresses may not all comply with the standards provided by the National Postal Service. However, we always keep an eye on this to ensure that we have the most updated information, the most up-to-date information. So we put together all these rules, and to each and every rule that we add as a new profiling to our database, we will assign a dedicated attribute, rather if it's to monitor the accuracy of the data, the uniqueness of the data, we assign one of these data quality attributes so that we can have a general overview of the data quality of our OMS dictionary. We cannot always check if the data is accurate or current, but we can ensure that no duplicates exist and that we have conformity both at organization and location level. Moving on into the statistics, what have we been doing and how are we handling our requests? So the latest information on OMS statistics for the first part of the year of 2023. So just to tell you that under data service, we have already reviewed close to 40,000 records. So we have also experienced a slight increase of change requests and service desk calls. Although despite this increase on change requests data service, we have improved on our SLA compliance when we talk about service desk. As part of the assessment of our customer satisfaction, we note that the service desk had some space for improvement, and this is why we focused during 2023, and it's visible that our SLAs continue to improve at this point. Moving on into supporting documentation, where can you find supporting documentation, how to handle OMS dictionary? So the main portal will be OMS portal, where we have all sorts of supporting documentation on how to create a change request, what we've seen it, on type of supporting documentation per type of request, what are our SLAs. So all these, and you have also a couple of webinars that we've provided. All this is available in our OMS portal. You can also have some guidance in terms of registration process. This can be found on EMA account management portal. How to create an EMA account. You can also consult our training, our EMA info channel, where you're going to have some video trainings on OMS. And last but not least, if you don't find the answer you're looking for in any of these platforms, you can always reach out to us using a service desk. You can place your question, you can raise an incident, you can raise a request to us, and we will guide you the best possible way. As part of our, just to show you, as part of our assessment of the customer survey, we identify one of the points that you share with us is that we needed to have to reduce the extensive documentation that we had available in our portal. We've started this activity. I think we managed to reduce. We still want to review a little bit more, but for now, we've reduced the number of documents there. However, the structure that we had before continues to exist. So we continue to group the documentation. In the top, you'll see information about the service and statistic, following by process guidance. The OMS data quality standards can be found in this second section. Then we move on into a couple of documents containing information on OMS consuming systems. We have then information on performance, documentation about the registration process and templates, and last but not least, more technical information on API access. So this is the information that you have available in our OMS portal, but looking into a different perspective and looking into provide you refine, because I know it can, at the beginning, can be a bit overwhelming, having to go through all that documentation at the first instance. That's why we try to create this slide, this guidance here, where we give you some key documents to start. So before you start, we advise you to start with these 3 documents. Moving on into the access, these will be the key documents for you to review and ensure that you don't have any questions in terms of access. In terms of data quality, those will be the 2 documents we advise you to review. And in terms of change request process, and this is key because it's throughout the change request process that you can update information on our OMS dictionary. These will be the 4 documents to review before you can actually start with the change request process. Moving on into where is OMS after all this time, because OMS went live in 2016. And as you can see, all the green stars show, so you have some timeline for the life cycle of the medicine. And as you can see, OMS is already available in pretty much all stages of the process. In a yellow star, because it's part of our planning, is coming. We have the WHO certificates. This should become soon. And looking into a different overview, when we talk EMA systems, where OMS can be found, OMS is already in most of EMA systems and most of the regulatory procedures that EMA manages. So looking into a couple of these examples and practical examples of where OMS is and how can you look for this. So looking into the EAF, EAF form, electronic application. So any data that is in OMS dictionary with active status will be available and is used in the EAF form. So what fields are available in the EAF form? Although OMS has a lot of information, not all fields are available in the form when you perform, for example, a search. At this point, you can, using EAF, you can search using organization ID. You will have access to the organization name, to the address details, to city and country value. Nothing else will be available in the EAF. There are a lot of attributes that OMS has, such as alternative names that are not available in EAF. And how do you get around the EAF to finally find the details and use it in this form? So you'll be prompted with the option to find organization. And here you can use a couple of attributes to search for your organization. You can either use OMS identifiers, or you can use organization name plus country. And after you click search, you'll be prompted with all the details that are active in OMS. Another example of integration of OMS in a consuming system. And here we have a scheme on how SAP information flows from SAP into OMS and last into IRIS. So we start this flow with a financial process. We start in SAP the flow. So the user submits the form to SAP Account Management. SAP Account Management will handle your request, either create or update your SAP details. At this point, it's very important to retain that although we have a one-way flow, however, SAP is still not consuming from OMS. So users will always need to submit changes to SAP Account Management to create and update the details independently from the changes that are submitted in OMS. So the changes can be applicable, that will be applicable to SAP. They will flow into OMS through our SAP Delta daily integration. So once it gets to OMS team, we will validate, standardize the organization name. We will validate and standardize the address. And on top of this, we will collect the SAP ID. We'll store this SAP ID into our OMS database. At this point, because this is restricted information, we are storing this information, but you cannot see neither in the API, not in the OMS portal. Just one couple of final notes that at this point is important to retain, that any location deactivation will have to be submitted directly to OMS. Users can submit other changes to OMS if they wish to, although any changes that are not submitted to OMS, we will pick up in our daily integration in our Delta integration with SAP on the following day. Not to forget, last but not least, that users should not request any SAP changes via change request process. Any SAP changes need to be handled directly with SAP Account Management team. And once the information is in OMS, it will flow into IRIS. And at this point, data in IRIS is available as per OMS dictionary. Information will be organization name and location data will be available as in OMS. and when applicable to a certain procedures that involve fee, the SAP customer ID will be available for validation. Now, how can you report, and what if something goes wrong with the process? If you identify that the SAP customer ID is not available, or the information that is displayed in IRIS is incorrectly, we ask you to submit ask a question using ServiceNow, using a service desk. At this point, we ask you to submit this question to OMS, populating service and service offering with both SPOR and OMS. Why this? Because OMS team is currently responsible for the investigation. Any synchronization issues between SAP, OMS, and IRIS, we will investigate the full synchronization and assign the ticket to the correct team of that will help with the resolution of the issue. Now, what is new in OMS? What have we been doing? So we've done a couple of improvements in terms of registration process, because we detected as part of the statistics assessment from last year that the number of rejected change requests, it continues too high, close to 40%. We've identified that 28% of the change requests in last quarter, in the last quarter of last year, 28% of the requests were rejected because the data was already available. And within those, we saw that 20% had attempt to create this duplicate more than 2 consecutive times. So in order to reduce these consecutive rejections, what OMS team is doing is that we will open a ServiceNow ticket on behalf of the user to enable the discussion and to be able to clarify any outstanding questions on the registration process, try to support our users the best way we can. This way, with this change, we're trying to improve our customer experience and overall process efficient, and by reducing the number of rejected change requests. What we ask you is that you ensure, in order for this process to flow, we ask our users to ensure that you have a functional and frequently monitored email linked to your EMA account. Otherwise, we're trying to reach out to you, but you'll never receive our communication. As part of the another improvement that we did is that in order to simplify the user experience on basic support to OMS, we've enriched our service now with our frequently asked questions. So we've populated all our frequent asked questions into service now. With this, we expect to reduce the waiting time, since it's as simple as the user typing the question, some keywords in the how can we help in service now, and the answer will be prompt immediately. So there is no need for the user to fill in all the form, to browse through documents. The answer to the question most of the times will be already available instantly in service now. Last but not least, in the summer this year, OMS became mandatory for SEP certificates. So this means that for any SEP holder and applicants must provide our OMS org ID and loc ID when they are populating a SEP certificate. So this is how the certificate look now, but I'll leave you here the webinar where we as OMS team, we also participate with, we cooperate with our EDQM colleagues to provide a training on registration process, and in this webinar you also have information on what exactly changed on the SEP certificate side. In terms of future activities for OMS, we have a very busy year coming. In terms of customer service, we've started to increase our quality control and quality assurance process. This way, we try to detect most errors we can so that we ensure we continue our process improvement. We aim to review our service desk Q&As in order to improve our customer service. Also, some feedback we receive in the customer satisfaction survey. In terms of data management, we aim to start creating an OMS data quality protection, an OMS data protection notice, and I'll show you. I'll give you more information in the following slide. In this sense, we'll continue with process improvement in terms of our SAP manual, our SAP deltas, because with all that flow that we've seen in one of the previous slides, we may detect gaps in this process that we may need to improve, and we have this placeholder for that. And starting next year, we aim to trigger our EV deltas. I'm also giving you more information on this end in the following slide, so not getting into much detail now. In terms of data quality, so we continue with our enrichment using a national business registry number, and this is also coming in a following slide with more details and benefits to this activity. We will continue updating our data quality profiles to ensure that we monitor any change to our data quality standards to ensure that we keep an eye on those changes. Towards the end of the year, we're planning to do some process improvements in terms of category review of all the category values that we have. And this is going to be also another point that I'll give you more information. And last but not least, under the data quality group, we, at the beginning of next year, just like we did at the beginning of this year, we will do another currency check. And this is an activity that you've heard us talking about. This currency check is no more than we reviewing any record that has not been updated for the past 2 years. We will review to see if there is any record that we may have that is no longer accurate, that no longer valid with the National Business Registry. In terms of document, we've started and we've seen a significant reduction to the OMS documents, but we aim to continue with this activity of reviewing and condensing the OMS documentation. We also, beginning next year, will also like to have a guidance on all the documentation that we have in our OMS portal. A continuation of the work of that slide that we saw, where it summarizes each of the stages that you may have, that you may be in, what type of documentation you should consult. We also looking to get feedback in terms of experience with ServiceNow. We're collecting histories in this sense and would like to review them and see in which of the points we can improve based on that feedback. In terms of awareness and visibility, so we're today in our OMS webinar. We'll be doing another one beginning next year, but not to forget that because all this plan that we have here, it can change depending on the feedback that you give us when we launch our customer satisfaction survey. We at this point, just to tell you that if you disagree, if you'd like to, if you think that there is any areas that OMS can improve, so this is the forum to tell us, to share with us, because our activities for the future, for next year, can change according to the feedback that you provided in this customer satisfaction survey. And last but not least, we continue with maintaining our system. We continue with bug fixing and trying to release new features that will help, that will improve the customer experience, such as the return functionality, and even display the National Business Registry that we start enriching, and in the future even allow users to maintain this information using the change request functionality. Now, going back to those points, to those 4 points that I touched base at the beginning. So we have those 4 points, starting with OMS data protection notice. So as you know, OMS collects personal information, not only through change requests, but also through the ticket management. And according to EU regulation, we need to have this OMS data protection notice. When is this going to happen? So we foresee to conclude and to publish, to develop and to publish this by the end of the year. What will be the impact to the user is that this document will provide clear information on the purpose of the collection of your personal information. What type of data are we collecting? Who controls it? How do we process it? How do we ensure the security of your data? And how can the users exercise their right in this matter? So moving on into the second feature, which is EV Deltas to OMS. With this feature, we're trying to ensure that all EV marketing authorization holders are correctly synchronized into OMS. So this will allow us to enrich our OMS dictionary with standardized organization name, standardized location details, and import EV marketing authorization holders. So, and when is this happening? We're planning to go live into production at the beginning of next year. What is the benefit of this feature? So with this, we're trying to ensure a smooth transition into PMS, and with this activity being performed before the go live of PMS, we're trying to minimize the number of issues that users may have in the access, and to ensure that they will be able to see all their products in during the go live date. Another feature, and in this case, as part of the data quality enrichment in terms of with National Business Registry number. With this, we aim to facilitate the identification of potential duplicates, because if we see that this number is available in 2 records, then something might be odd. This number will can also help us with the identification of records that have, in case we have in the system records with one record with a whole name and another one with the new name. This way, it will help us identify these potential duplicates and clean them as we go. This number will also help identifying the legal address, because this enrichment, this mapping, this ID will be maintained under the location information, and this is how you'll be able to identify which of the addresses, because an organization can have multiple, which of them is the legal address. So this is an ongoing activity. We started a couple of months ago, and we will keep going with this. With this, we attempt to provide a clear identification of the official legal address, as I mentioned, for a certain organization. And last but not least, the category review. With this, we aim to improve our data profiling. How are we going to do this? We aim to review the current categories that we are using and possibly expand to accommodate new requirements or recent system integration. And we're starting the assessment during this quarter or beginning of next year. With this, we aim to have a clear categorization of OMS records to facilitate the usage of the data. So with this, just some key notes, key takeaways before we conclude our session. So we went through a couple of key principles in OMS. We went through our OMS change request process. This is how you can maintain our OMS up to date. We were able to provide you some updated statistics and show you where OMS is today. In terms of recent activities and future activities, so we continue with our service desk improvements. We created the knowledge articles. We try to create a contact point to the users using a service desk. OMS became mandatory in the SEP certificates, and we continue with the enrichment of National Business Registry in our OMS. And how OMS is addressing the feedback that you gave us through the last year customer satisfaction surveys. So we continue with the improvements on OMS documentation. In this case, what we did is review and condense because we had too much information there. OMS, in terms of OMS registration process, we try to reduce the rejection because we understand it's very frustrated for the user to keep receiving the same answer over and over again. And last but not least, we try to simplify the user experience by update our FAQs into their service now. And now, I hope you enjoyed our session. Let's see how easy was this and if I were able to transmit the message. Now let's go for some quiz time. We have some questions. Okay, so now I will ask you to join our Slido so that you can participate in our quiz. You can use, this is not, of course, this part of the webinar is not mandatory. If you wish to remain anonymously, you can also join and remain anonymously. You can use this, you can access Slido and use the code, or you can use the QR code available in the screen. We'll just give a couple more minutes so that you're all ready. We're gonna have 5 multiple choice questions. All the information has been provided throughout the webinar. Let's see if we were able to pass the message. So let's move on into the first question. So, which organization type is always made public in OMS? national competent authorities, industry and manufacturers, academies and hospitals, or all OMS organizations are public as soon as they are added to our OMS dictionary. Okay. Let's see. How did we do? Okay. Happy to see the majority got it right. Not to forget that all records, our OMS dictionary is public. All records that are added to our dictionary will be publicly available through our APR or in our OMS portal. So moving on into the next question. Who can actually change OMS data? And anyone can change or create any of the records. Only NCAs can update OMS data. Only industries such as marketing authorization holders and sponsors can do the changes, or each company needs to update or create their own record. Let's see. Okay, so here majority got the right answer. However, this is one of the frequent questions that we receive, and very important at this point to retain that anyone can create or update any of the records as long as you provide the supporting documentation. We are not restricting the registration of certain organizations to the owners. We allow anyone to maintain the data to simplify the user experience. Moving on into the next one. How many records should be created in OMS? 1 record per regulatory procedure, 1 record per legal entity, meaning as registered in the National Business Registry, 1 record per domain, 1 organization for human event, or 1 record per department or business unit. Which one? How do you think we can create this in OMS? Good, very good, very good. Here we had the majority, very happy to see this, that this is exactly what OMS does. We can create as many alternative names as you wish to capture department, business units. However, we will create the data in OMS as it is registered in the National Business Registry. Moving on into the next one, which of the OMS values cannot be selected when using electronic application form? Organization name, country, alternative name, or location identifier. Which of the values cannot, the answer is which of these are not visible and selectable there? Good, and this one, happy to see, indeed. The ones, although the OMS can add as many alternative names as you wish, however, this information is not selectable when using EAF. You can always consult OMS dictionary to refer to this information, however, this is not choosable in EAF. Last but not least, when can I deactivate a location? When I no longer need it for any regulatory procedures, when the company is no longer doing business in a certain location, right after a company expansion and the new location is already available in the system, or right after a transfer of marketing authorization holder. When can I deactivate a location? Very good to hear this. This is exactly the only time that you're supposed, because OMS retains the information as they are available in the National Business Registry, as they are available, as they are operating, doing business. And this is why we will only deactivate an organization when this is no longer valid. And here we have the winners. So MJ, congratulations. You were the best one with the fastest answers to OMS. Now, we have a lot of questions. Let's go then into, I'll do it, into the questions. So, why is a district part of the address and not in a separate database field? This is now always output with the street and cannot be distinguished. Not sure if I fully understand the question, but if I'm not able to answer, please reach out using service desk. But the district, it's integral part of the address. It allows us to ensure that we have a complete address. And most of the cases, such as German or even India or China, district help us ensuring that we have an address according to the National Postal Service information. As addresses rely on National Postal Service, which may have mistakes, and not addresses registered by health authorities, the reference in GMP certificates generates a lot of regulatory non-compliance. This system should be the change to take into account official registration addresses. So here what happens often is that companies provide the proof of registries to those health out to NCAs upon an inspection, and this is the information that the NCAs will take as a true. In, for example, in a case of we often receive this question in a case of a slightly different postal code. However, the information that we use is the information that is in the National Postal Service. If you, as user, identify that something is not correct with the National Postal Service, or even the first thing I would tell you is you can always consult us, you can always create a change request with this request. What we'll do is we will review the information, we will ensure, because we can have we may not have the latest version of information available in the National Postal Service. So let us know, and we will review if indeed we have the information according to the National Postal Service. What we can tell you is please reach out to the National Postal Service to understand because it can happen that certain National Postal Service often review their addresses and often refine the information that they have, and it's possible that you may not be using the latest information, the latest, for example, postal code number to refer to your physical address. However, you should not have any negative impact on your regulatory procedure. If this is happening, and if NCAs would like to understand how we manage the data, we're happy to clarify. We actually put together a document with our key user group with a statement where our key user group put together a couple of frequent examples that we have of frequent discrepancies in terms of acronyms that may be used, slightly different on the postal code. Our key user group put together this document to support with these questions from national competent authorities. What is SAP? What is used for? So SAP is our financial database. This is those companies that have the SAP codes are the ones that have regulatory procedures that involve fees. And for that, they need to have this SAP, this account with our account management team created. This is not applicable to all OMS records, but because there are regulatory procedures that are fee related, this is why we need to ensure that we have the latest version of the data in our database. When two different organizations share the same location, does the location have a different loc ID for each organization, or is it the same? This is a very good question. And the answer to this is, if we have, it takes us back to the beginning of the presentation where we have the key principles, and we can have in the system the same physical location, but as long as this physical location is linked to a different organization, to a different legal entity, we will have to create the same physical location and assign to each of them different loc IDs, because we'll have one legal entity, one organization name with one org ID, and we'll have the correspondent. We cannot have one loc ID linked to two different org IDs or to two different organizations. This organization location and its relationship is always unique. There is no share, there is no transfer of location identifiers. Is there an escalation matrix in place in case the service desk or OMS change request does not meet the SLA? We are currently contacting the service desk on a daily basis, but we are not receiving an update request on the tickets. Okay, to this one, we'll have to assess. Okay, I see that my colleagues already helped me with the answer to this question. So I think this was addressed during our Sport Data Governance webinar. And what's the answer?
Yes, this is Isabel on the call. I have already provided the answer in writing and clarified to the user that if there is a specific complaint about any SPOR service or XEVMPD, that they can contact me, the head of service, directly, so that I can investigate what's happening and assign it to the right person and justify it. So I explained this Monday and in writing to the user. And this is Isabel speaking, by the way. I'm responsible for the service.
Thank you, Isabel. So how will differences in postal codes be addressed? There are many cases where the postal code in the National Business Registry is different from the address doctor. So this is what I've touched base already in a previous question. We understand that this difference exists, but we also need to acknowledge that majority of the exports and information available in the National Business Registry, they may be available. They were the truth probably from 10 years ago. However, the information that we have in Address Doctor is information provided by the National Postal Service and is the latest information available. So as long as we have the information according to the National Postal Service, we ensure that we have accurate data. If you have any disagreement, if you have any questions, then our advice is please contact the National Postal Service to have more clarity if indeed they refine the postal code and that was the reason for the change of the postal code. For cases where we, as OMS, we have different information from the National Postal Service, then this will be automatically correct with a simple change request to us. If the manufacturer filled in the SEP certificate as both the production address and the SEP holder address, whose address would be provided there? So here, I have to, this is a question that needs to be placed to our EDQM colleagues. What address does it need to be populated in the certificate? This is rules that are implemented by EDQM. The key takeaway at this point is that OMS will create anything that you may need for those certificates to be issued. What type of data do you need to have it there? Then that need to be, it's a question for our EDQM colleagues. OMS manages the data that is there, how the data is used in a certain consuming system, in this case EDQM. Those rules are established by each consuming system, in this case EDQM. Unanswered? There's no unanswered. I can put stars. Okay, sorry. Yeah. In case of a merge, does the name of both organizations need to be updated? Or the merger in OMS can happen with only one updated organization? Or a merger, does the name of both organizations need to be updated, or the merger in OMS can happen with only one updated organization? Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, when we have a business merge of two different legal entities, it's as simple as you only need to submit one update organization name change request to us. You can refer in the justification, you can mention the organization ID of the other organization. And as long as you provide the required supporting documentation, we will do everything necessary to update, to merge, according to the supporting documentation, according to the actions that took place in the National Business Registry. So one single change request will be sufficient for us to correct a case as such as a merge or update of the organization name, when the old name and the new name are already available in the system. So going to the beginning, if we identify a duplicate in OMS, can we escalate to OMS to remove this entry? So if you identify a duplicate in OMS, you can create a change request to us. Just tell us, just with one simple change request, just what we ask you is share with us the ID, org ID, or loc ID of the potential duplicate, and we will do the assessment with one single change request. What are the roles needed on EMA account to be able to download the list of organization registered in OMS? Can you please explain it how to do it? So, to have this export option available, the only thing you need is to ensure that you have a SPOR role assigned to your account. What you need to do, how do you see this, is you log into EMA account management. You can go to manage your roles, if I'm not mistaken, and you type SPOR. If you have any SPOR role, SPOR unaffiliated role, SPOR super user role, industry user, NCA, any SPOR role, you'll be good you have access to download this information. What you do is you go to OMS portal. Again, you need to log into OMS portal and you will have the button available. As soon as you log in, the button on the top right left hand side, you'll have export all organizations. In this export, you will have only active records, but this is the records that are valid in our system. We have amended our company address in SPOR since the information included on the system was not correct, but the information has not been updated on other GMDP. Is there an additional step we can take? The location is the same. We amended for it to match the one included. Okay, so if you see at this point, if you submitted a change to OMS, OMS publish it, and you see the information in OMS, if you have any questions on why the information is not being pushed into other GMDP, you need to consult the other GMDP colleagues to try to understand what's happening. However, at this point, it's very important to understand that although information changes in SPOR, it doesn't automatically mean that it will be pushed into the certificate itself. No. Information, the address details are only going to be updated in the certificate once the NCA updates or issue a new GMP certificate. If your question relates to, I'm trying to get, when I search for a certain lock ID, I cannot see the details that as I see it in SPOR, then you need a ticket. Our other GMDP colleagues will have to look on what failed in this synchronization, but from what I see, they're pretty expedite in fixing this type of mistakes. Who should be responsible for registering, updating address details for organizations outside the EU? CMOs located in other parts of the world, whose details may be needed in EF. So this was one of the quiz questions. So anyone can create, update, submit anything. So in this case, when we did this in order to simplify the user experience, because we understand if you are in a EU country, you are a sponsor, you are a marketing authorization holder, having to reach out to all your manufacturers to create an EMA account, to go to OMS, to register themselves in OMS, this will not be bearable, and it would be a headache for EU companies. That's why we simplify the process, and we've opened the registration process to have anyone created. So if you are in the EU and you need an organization to be created, and this organization is not located in the EU, it's you as a EU company, you're able to submit the change request on behalf of the company as long as you have the required supporting documentation. This is the key. If you have the required support documentation according to our guidance, you will be able to create the data that you need to use in the electronic application form. Our national agencies always displayed in English. Is it possible to find them by the acronym and local language? Yes. So our dictionary is maintained mainly in English. The main organization name will, and when the official translation, this is very important, when the official translation exists in English, this is how we will maintain the organization name. However, you've seen that we have acronym, we have a dedicated field for acronym, we have dedicated fields for translations. as long as this information is available in our system, when you go to SPOR, you can use any of these 3 attributes, and the system will always show you the master record. In this case, if you use an acronym, let's say the German organization, if you query by BFARM, by typing just the acronym, the outcome of the search is not going to be an organization called BFARM, it's going to be the full organization name in English. And when you open the record, you will see the main organization name in English, you'll see the acronym there, and you'll see all the the name in the local language. This is applicable to NCAs and to any other organization, not only to NCAs. Some national authorities have automated check-in of EAFs, and this will create validation errors when it is not possible to choose alternative names in OMS. Is there a solution coming for this? If you're looking to choose the alternative names using EAF, this is a change that or a new requirement that you maybe propose to EAF colleagues. So if you're trying to perform the search using alternative names in OMS, this is possible. However, if you wish to see this change taking place in EAF, this is a question that needs to be placed to our colleagues that manage the electronic application form, because it's a change required to the electronic application form and not to OMS, because OMS has the information, is maintaining the information there. Can we request marketing authorization holder address on SPOR while certificate of incorporation states a different registration address? Yes, you can. We know that companies, and especially when you talk big companies, they will have more than one physical address. They will only have one legal address, but they can have more than one office register. This is no problem. We will create as many locations as needed, as long as you're able to submit proof that the organization indeed has an office in a certain, or is doing business in a certain physical location. Can you explain step by step how to change company address? So this one, I'll have to point out to the presentation. We've reviewed this. So this is done through the change request process. Please review the presentation that we publish in our OMS page. There you have the step-by-step, you have mandatory fields that are required for a new address to be created, as long as you provide the supporting documentation. This will be fairly simple. You just need to go to our OMS portal, you need to log in, you need to perform a search, you need to open the organization. If the address is not there, you click the option to request new location, and then you populate the form with the address details, you add the supporting documentation, and you submit the change request. And then you need to wait for our validation within our SLAs, and the information should be published within the agreed SLA. In OMS, we noted an ID, which is not org ID nor loc ID. This was noted when entering a new site in CTIS submission. It is in the column organization ID, 6 numbers, submission try. different from ID starting with org, which is not visible. I think what you're referring here, if what you aim to write here, it was ORQ and not ORG, what I can tell you is that ORQ is a change request ID. So this is not an org ID nor a loc ID. This is simply the change request ID. This ID can be used to trace a change request. However, this doesn't mean that your organization or location has been validated and successfully created in OMS. I hope this answer. However, if you see that this, because from what I read in the description, this is an information that is visible in the CTIS side, in the CTIS submission at the CTIS submission stage. So my advice would be, please create, if I were not able to answer your question, please create a service desk ticket to CTIS so that they can further help you and tell you what exactly is this ID that is not an org ID nor a loc ID. If OMS data should be enriched with OLIV code, would this not require separate entities for current alternative names in OMS? Would this not require a separate? No. And here I'll have to refer back to our OMS key principles, where OMS registered the data as legal entities. If there are slightly changes, or if there are a department, in this case we're talking a marketing authorization holders, OMS does not capture roles, OMS does not capture departments. OMS maintain the data as it is in the National Business Registry. And this is what we're going to do. When we trigger our EV deltas and we import these EV marketing authorization holder codes, we already have some there, but they're not up to date. This is an activity that, as we see, it's coming. So we will get there. However, if there is indeed a business name or another name that need to be captured there, we're happy to add as many alternative names as needed. However, this EV code will be stored in the respective field, which is under the location source of information. So when one record, in the similar way that we saw for EUDRA GMDP codes in one of the key principle slides, so this will be the same thing for EV codes. When one OMS record has an EV code, you will see it under the location. You will have a placeholder for XEV MPD codes, and this is where we will retain. Those EV codes will not be maintained as alternative names. Alternative names is just to capture any translations or any other business names that the company may be using for business purpose. In case a user is linked to more than one legal entity, how can they select the legal entity for which to log in? So as part of the login process is fairly simple. It's just click in the login, and as long as you have an EMA account, this is what you require. You need to have an EMA account. Once this happens, you don't need, you'll be automatically prompted with all the options, with the full dictionary, with the export functionality. The link, you as a SPOR user, you can be linked to as many legal entities as you desire. This is a matter of your work arrangement. But you don't need to be affiliated to a certain organization to change their data. As we saw, you can change any data as long as you have a spore, any of the spore roles, you will be able to change those details. To link yourself with a certain organization or legal entity, this is done in EMA account management. In EMA account management, and you can link yourself to as many organizations as you desire. Okay. Isn't EV code to be considered as a purpose-specific piece of information that belongs in the consuming systems rather than OMS? In the code to be considered as a purpose-specific piece of information that belongs. We're not changing the EV, so the EV code will remain there. What we will do, and in order to ensure that OMS has all the information available, and on top of all the information available in EV, and on top of that, those EV codes will be required for the integration with the PMS. So we're not changing anything on EV. What we're doing is we are enriching OMS dictionary with EV codes. We're not changing the meaning, we're not changing any, we're just enriching, we're just creating what we call a mapping to that certain record, just to translate what may be in EV, which, as you know, it's not going to be standardized data. You maintain your data there as you desire. However, when we move into OMS, we need to have some sort of way to understand that the record, which may be written in a slightly different way, however, in OMS, the data will be standardized, will have the same meaning of the data that we have in EV. And in case there are any questions, users can always use this EV code to clarify if we're actually referring to the same record or not. Can erroneous entry be removed if a company employer perform an entry that was not foreseen by the management? Remove, no. This is one of the OMS principles, is that nothing is ever deleted. However, if there is, it's possible, we've seen cases that the data was wrongly created in OMS. What we will do is if the data is not reliable, if it's not accurate, what we will do is we will deactivate the record, and hence the record will no longer be available in to be used in any of the consuming systems, but delete or remove the data from OMS. This is not possible, as it goes against our business rules. And I think with this, we conclude. Yeah.
So, Deborah, I think we have answered everything in the background. If we still have more questions coming in, we will try to address them in writing as they come in. And everything else I see has been addressed in writing. So we will leave Slido open for a while if people want to browse, but I'm happy to say that we have addressed everything either in writing or with your answers verbally at the webinar. So if you do bear with us, I think it's time for a quick poll. We would really appreciate your feedback on how this session was run and what we can do to improve in the future. So if you could please fill out this quick survey. And as I mentioned, we will still keep the Slido open to monitor any last-minute question that might come in. So please give us the feedback on how the session was run today. And thank you for joining.